Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Oh, come on, guys. It's not raining. We were expecting rain this morning. So good morning, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. I am so thankful to be in this space, the New Granada Apartments Community Center. It is a beautiful, beautiful space. This is one of the symbols of the revitalization of the Hill District, and the beauty of 501c3 nonprofit organizations doing the hard work with local, state, and federal dollars. That's the combination that is so needed to help communities like Manchester and the Hill District. And I'm so proud to be part of that and be part of the individuals that are here today to talk about more about that. The first person, as Mayor Gainey calls her, the queen of the Hill District.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, first of all, for being here in the Hill District. Welcome to the historic Hill District neighborhood. One of the most important, I would argue, most important neighborhood in Pittsburgh, but I can't make that comment with the mayor, and he has to love all of the communities equally. I'd also like to welcome Director Perez to the Hill District and thank the federal government for leading the investments into the Hill District neighborhood in partnership with our local leadership. We cannot speak highly enough about the importance of the investment of choice, which is a $50 million investment from HUD, as well as a $14 million investment from RAISE, which will support both the North Side and the Hill District neighborhood. When it comes to infrastructure, it's one of those things that we don't frequently think about or talk about when we talk about community development. But at the end of the day, what happens when you do not have infrastructure dollars in your neighborhood is senior citizens are in the street on their wheelchair because they cannot get up on the sidewalk. Children are leaping over gaps in the sidewalk. Cars are suffering all types of damage because there are potholes in the street. And so when we think about how we can repair community through investment dollars, we have to contextualize that in the historic investment that happened federally funded investment. We have the Lower Hill District, which is a critically important manner, and we appreciate ongoing some equitable happened on that site and what is happening throughout the neighborhood. 8,000 people were displaced as a result of federally funded development at that time in history. 400 businesses were removed. 1,200 buildings were demolished. 2/3 of the population of the people on that site were African American. Many were spread throughout the entire region and are still trying to recover economically. And so the future of infrastructure investments has to be rooted in equitable policy. And so we are very grateful that that is the intent here. And of course, I would not be marimba if I didn't say that we need ongoing investment along the Center Avenue corridor. That while the investment that we have received from our local leadership, the state leadership, as well as the federal leadership has been tremendous, including this building here, it will take much more capital in order to fully deliver on the vision that the community has for itself and to bring economic revitalization to the entire city and region. And so with that, once again, thank you for the investments to date. We are incredibly grateful. When we talk about building the Hill District of tomorrow, we are talking about people like Alicia George and others who are serving the children of this neighborhood. We are building a community for the children of the future, and for the children of the future and for the children who are now growing into adulthood. And so we just ask that you are thinking about them as you are investing in the communities today. Thank you.
Thank you, Marimba. Now, as early stated, federal highway dollars and urban policies created some damage to especially African-American communities. And we are trying to reinvest in those communities in ways that is just not the infrastructure. And when we're talking about infrastructure of sidewalks and buildings, but reinvesting in the people that call these neighborhoods home. If you're thinking of infrastructure and you're just thinking buildings, you're making a sad mistake, because people are the infrastructure. Without people, there is no neighborhood. Without people, there is no buildings, there's no homes, there is nothing but sidewalks and buildings. That's not to say it's not important, because it is. It's needed for individuals to be able to be safe. And in that safety, they can build, but they can't build if we, as local, state, and federal officials, do not provide that reinvestment into these neighborhoods. Next, I would like to bring Aaron Abney, Pennsylvania State Representative.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Ariane Abney, I have the pleasure and the honor of representing all of my neighbors in the 19th State House Legislative District, which includes where we are here today in the Hill District, but also where we were earlier today in Manchester. I want to welcome Director Perez to Pittsburgh and to the district. I want to thank Director Perez and the Biden administration for their leadership and really for their commitment to continuing to invest in communities all across this country, like Manchester, like the Hill District, who have been impacted and are still dealing with the aftermath of urban renewal negative policy decisions. You know, I'm a firm believer that we are going through a lot of transformation change in our communities. I think change is both source of our greatest opportunities. I think as part of our greatest fears, when we think about what urban renewal did and how it has impacted people's lives, but change is also a source of opportunity. What we are seeing, what's happening with the investments here today. And I think that part of government's role is to right the wrongs that government had a role in playing all those years before, right? And I think this is an example of us being able to try to do that. I want to thank Mayor Gainey and his administration for continuing to be bold, visionary leaders for the city of Pittsburgh, for always trying to figure out how they can leverage resources both at the federal and the state level. I know he's up in Harrisburg a lot, coming up there trying to get some more money from state government. So I want to thank him for that. But I think this is one case example of what co-governance really is supposed to look like. This is your local government, your city, also your county plays a role in this, your state government, your federal government, bringing resources back to improve the quality of life for our residents in our communities. That is part of our role. But in saying that, I also will recognize that, you know, government alone is not going to be able to solve all the challenges that are in our communities. It's going to take a multifaceted approach from government, from our nonprofit sector, from our business community, from our corporate community, from our religious institutions and other core social institutions, and residents. As was mentioned, residents are the heartbeat of our communities. And so we need everybody to be participatory in the future, making sure that we're all rowing the boat in the same direction. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here. I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I'm committed to continue to bring resources back to Harrisburg, for Manchester, for the Hill District, and other areas I represent. So thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, State Rep Abney. Now, it's my pleasure and honor to introduce next to the podium someone that I changed my career because I believe in his vision. I believe in his ability to bring people together and get the job done.
Before I begin, there's just some people I'd like to recognize. Latasha Mays, I know your office is here. Can you stand up, please? Yeah. He also represents part of the Hill. I also want to make sure I recognize the Executive Director of the Housing Authority for work and be able to exercise the contracts the way they need to be exercised. So before I, say anything, my team is good for knowing that I changed up the game. I'd just like for you to come up and say a couple words.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, since I'm Castabillion, Executive Director of Housing Authority of Pittsburgh, #1 rule: never try to follow behind the mayor. It's a tough job, but I just want to keep it simple. I mean, we are a team Pittsburgh, work to make things happen, and we're going to make things happen. Being part of the team is yeah, it was a tough job, but we all got in the same boat and we rolled at the same time.
She comes from a family that they poured their blood, heart, and tears into this community. Her family gave all that they had to make sure that the Hill was a great community. And as they say, the apple don't fall far from the tree. And Marimba has been a tireless effort. I mean, her advocacy for this neighborhood, you gotta give her credit for what she's accomplished. You gotta give her credit for what she's accomplished. So I'd like for her to stand and to recognize Marimba, one of the features in the Hill District. I affectionately call her the queen because, you always got to rumble for what you want. Marimba ain't got no problem calling you, telling you step by step what they need and how, and then they have a plan of how we gonna get there. So, what you say? Absolutely. And of course, the love of decades, generations and generations. A lot of us stand on the shoulders. I'm sorry. You come from this community, you stand on the shoulders of that family. So I like to recognize them too. I also just want to quick, I also want to say that this is the Mecca of the city. This is the HILL. This is the Hill District. This is when we remember the Hill District, the nightclubs, the jazz clubs, the pharmacies, the stores. This is where African-American business originated and really grew. We can't take that away from that. And a lot of times through the years, because of urban policies, we have seen our communities decimated because of the policies that we put in place. And a lot of us see it as a problem, but I see it as a promise. Because the reality is you can't have a promise unless you got a problem. And we know that we got a problem in the Hill District that we got to fix, and we've been steadfast in doing it. And that's why I just want to thank Tom Perez and the White House and President Biden for what they've helped us to do to be able to stabilize and able to invest in the Hill District. The RAISE grant is amazing. Think about it. Money that's going to go into fixing our infrastructure, our streets, our roads, our sidewalk, our city steps, everything that we use as a human infrastructure to get from one place to the next. This RAISE grant is going to be able to provide us the opportunity to do that. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about having partners from the federal level to the state level, like Arion and like Latasha, and at the local level, just to be able to talk about how do we work together as a collaboration and not in silos to build neighborhoods that everybody feel like they belong to the city. We will tear down silos. We will tear down the segregation. We will tear down everything to have a city that we say is for one and for all, and that we all deserve to be here. And I couldn't think of a greater partner to have than the President of the United States, Joe Biden. I couldn't think of a better partner to have, and that's because the truth of the matter is, a lot of times people, we're a mid-sized city. Sometimes we get overlooked, but this president hasn't overlooked us. Matter of fact, this president made sure that we had the resources that was necessary in order to do the work that we need to do. URA is here with Sheila and Kyle and the rest of them. This is what it's about. It's about working together to build a city for all. And we can only do that if the collaboration on the federal, state, and local level is there. And so as we continue to go forward, I need y'all to understand that. When we have partners that we can call on, we got an obligation to let people know that this is why we need them to stay in office. Because we haven't always had this type of relationship with the White House. Trust me, I've been in politics for a long time. I can tell you where we had the relationship and where we had. And when you're talking about the money, $50 million for Bedford, $14 million for the Rays grant, when you talk about that level of investment in one neighborhood called the HILL, you should be applauding what this president is doing. Because at the end of the day, that's an investment we ain't seen in a long time. This is what I mean about working together and bringing people together to make sure it's happening. You got the north side here today with the Hill District. Now, from us from the Hill District, that wasn't always the case. That's a whole conversation by itself. If you know what I'm talking about, raise your hand. Yeah, I thought y'all knew what I was talking about. But at the end of the day, it's one community in one city. And if we ain't advocating for each other, what are we doing? So you know my motto. Let's continue to stick together and build a safe city that is welcoming and a city that is thriving for everybody. Every single body. When growing up, I knew that, listen, out of 15 major metropolitan neighborhoods, we're the only city without a black or brown middle class neighborhood. It's 2024. We better than that. And we have to ensure that everything that we do it with a lens that says, listen, we want to make this a city for all and everybody got access. And we're on our way of doing that. And we couldn't do it without you, the people. So when I say thank you, I'm saying thank you for a couple of things. Thank you, because without you, I couldn't stand it. That's number one, I just couldn't. And I'm not just talking about as a man, I'm just talking about as a man. This community helped raise. And I understand exactly what that means. And I understand the meaning of not only pay it forward, but give it back. Secondly, I want to thank you because there's so many people in this room right now that I can point out that have always shared a minute with me to pour wisdom into me. And I couldn't be more appreciative. And then third, let's continue to do what we do and go get it. Thank you. Morgan State, baby.
The mayor's a little taller than I am, even with my boots on. That's okay, sir. I appreciate it. And as Mayor Gainey stated, the collaboration, the partnership is so important on the state and the federal level because we are local. We can make plans, but without the state and the federal assistance, it's not going to go anywhere. Also necessary to move the community forward is the public and private partnerships. That's important as well. So it's a pleasure to have from the White House, Senior Advisor for President Joe Biden and Director of the White House Intergovernmental Affairs, Tom Perez.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. It's such an honor to be here. I now understand, Director, why you said you should never follow the mayor. Man, oh man. I live in Maryland, and when he sat down, I said, Morgan State's proud of you. There are many things I love about you, Mayor. But one thing I learned growing up in Buffalo, New York, was you never forget from where you came. And you've never forgotten from where you came. And your whole life of service and purpose is about making sure that everybody gets a fair shake. Right. And I'm here to tell you that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are very proud to be part of Team Pittsburgh, okay? It's not just Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. We have our colleagues from HUD here. And it's not just helping with housing. You should stand up so everyone knows. Not just helping with housing, but, under the president, vice president's leadership, we're putting the UD back in HUD too. So urban development as well. And so we are so proud. And, I was listening to you speak before, and you said something that I wrote down. You said the future must be in equitable investment. Those were your words about 11 minutes ago. And I'm here to talk to you about what Joe Biden thinks about what you just said, because you must have been part of the transition in 2020. Because, you know, when President Biden, remember where we were, okay? January 20th, 2021. We were in the throes of a pandemic, people losing lives. We were 2 weeks removed from an unconscionable insurrection. We had a lot of work to do. We had a 14% unemployment rate. And we had a lot of folks who were losing hope. And Joe Biden understood that moments of gravest crisis are also the moments of greatest opportunity. I know that in my own life. I had the privilege of serving as your labor secretary and the head of the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department under a guy named Barack Obama. You know, and in those two positions, the laws we enforced, Mayor, when we led the Civil Rights Division, think about it, were largely a product of the Civil Rights Movement of the 60s. You know, the Civil Rights Act of 64, the Voting Rights Act of 65, short days after Dr. King's assassination, product of the New Deal, minimum wage, you know, Social Security, and by the way, Medicare and Medicaid from the 60s. Why do I bring this all up? The two most tumultuous decades of the 20th century were also the 2 decades where we made the greatest progress in investing in you, investing in community, investing in what we need to do. But frankly, back then, we didn't always get it right. And, you know, August Wilson, I've been to the August Wilson Museum in Pittsburgh years ago. I've been there multiple times. I've been to almost every one of his plays. And he once said that you must confront the dark parts of yourself and work to banish them with illumination and forgiveness. Your willingness to wrestle with your demons will cause your angels to sing. And you know what? One of our demons as a nation was that in the name of urban renewal, we quite literally drove through communities like the Hill, communities like Manchester Chateau, communities like Milwaukee, communities like Syracuse, communities like Buffalo. And the playbook was the same. In the name of urban renewal, you build a road that separates communities. It doesn't reconnect communities, it divides communities. And so when you said what you said earlier, reconnecting, the future must be equitable investment. Day one of President Biden and Vice President Harris's administration, there was an executive action taken by the president. It doesn't get as much play as it should, but I can tell you it is a North Star for this administration. And it was an executive order on equity. An executive order that said, you know what, if we do this right, we're not going to have an infrastructure week like others had, where you talk the talk but didn't walk the walk. We're going to have an infrastructure decade because we're going to invest in communities. But when we do that, as this executive order said, we must have equity as our North Star. And that's exactly what reconnecting communities is about. It is about reconnecting opportunity. It's about understanding, as Representative Abney understands, as your mayor understands, as everybody in this room understands, that this moment where we stand here in the Hill District, this has such a proud history dating back to the 19th century. And what happened in the name of urban renewal was not America at its best. I've spent most of my career as a civil rights lawyer. This is a civil rights issue. And that is why the president is so committed to the investments here to make it work. Not just the HUD investments, but making sure that day in and day out. And the term raise is about raising up communities that are sustainable. The S is sustainable and the E is equitable. Equity everywhere. And we couldn't do it without our partners in the private sector. Thank you for your investments. Thank you for your partnerships. It's so important, folks. And I leave you with this. It is so important to understand the moment that we are in. We are in a moment, yes, of grave crisis on many levels, but we are also in this moment of unprecedented opportunity. And you look at what's happened. There's been over $16 billion of investment from the American Rescue Plan, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, other federal investments, $16 billion in Pennsylvania alone. And that has triggered so much money, so much additional private sector investment. That's what it's about. These grants today are a continuation of our commitment to equity, inclusion, and opportunity. That's what this is about. And we have to remember this, because the worst thing in the world is you wake up and the moment's passed you by and you say to yourself, geez, I didn't meet the moment. I can tell you right now that folks in this room are meeting the moment big time. And your mayor and your county executive, and I know we were speaking with folks in her office, and I know that she wanted to be here as well, and she has her team here, and she had an unforeseen personal commitment that absolutely needed to take precedence. But we are so appreciative of what partnership is. Partnership is a word that gets uttered a lot, but sometimes real partnership, and then non-real partnership. I was looking for I had so many non-polite words that were in my head, and I didn't want to do that because my mother would be very, very unhappy with me. But we're going to continue this partnership. We're going to continue this partnership to ensure that everybody in this community has access to quality, high-speed internet. We're going to continue this partnership to ensure that everyone is drinking clean drinking water. We're going to make sure that we are addressing the transportation inequities. We're going to make sure that we're working in partnership so that you can walk to the grocery store, not have to drive or take the bus to the grocery store. We're going to work together to make sure that we continue to invest in our human capital, which is why Pittsburgh is one of 5 workforce hubs in the United States, because we know that when we do this, when we invest in our human capital, we build the middle class and we sustain the middle class. That's what investing in America is about. That's what investing in Pittsburgh is about. It's about partnership. It's about perseverance. And it is about parents in that other room that we saw earlier that are graduating, that are going to be continuing to be leaders in this community. This is a gathering this morning of serial activists. I'm proud to be here, and I'm proud to be working with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. We will continue to be here in partnership with you. We have so much more to do, and we are going to continue that work together. Partnership is what it's all about. Thank you so much for having me. And Mayor, thank you for your leadership. Governor Shapiro, thank you for your leadership.
Well, Director, I think it's okay for you to come back. You did well. I appreciate it. And I appreciate the partnerships and the collaboration that the White House is bringing forth to the city of Pittsburgh. We appreciate you guys. Now, my name is Olga George. I'm the press secretary for the city of Pittsburgh and Mayor Ed Gainey. At this time, the media in the room, if you have any questions, we'll take those questions. If there are no questions, thank you all for attending. We will adjourn at this time. Thank you.